in summary, do you think that the Nigerian economy is in distress at the moment?
The unambiguous answer is yes, of course. Yeah, the economy is very deeply distressed. Nigeria is practically bankrupt. There's no question in my mind about that. Poverty has increased, to very, very unconscionable degrees. Unemployment is about 40%. The Naira is in distress. So yes, the economy is in very, very bad shape. No question about it. It is an indictment on the political class, more specifically. Now, these jeeps that are going to be bought by or for the members of the House of Representatives are going to cost, hundreds of millions of billions of naira. Now, when somebody, and you're borrowing 1.5 billion from the World Bank.
When we talk, they will say we never like Tinubu. We are obedient. So there's nothing he's going to do to please us. But this is Dr. Prof Moghalu, a lawyer, an economist per excellence, a former deputy governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria. So he's privy to a lot of the information that some of us are not even privy to. I'm sure he's compared the statistics, he's sat down to look at it. And for the record, he's not even a Peter Obi person. He didn't support Peter Obi in the last election, of course. He wasn't vocal about his candidacy. He probably had kept quiet about his choices, right? And so whatever he's saying now is from a professional angle. But of course, they will still look for a way to fault it and say maybe he's gone from the southeast, and that's why he's talking like that. But the truth is, all of us are seeing the indices everywhere. As I talk to you now, there is over 26% rise in the inflation, right? And that has reflected the cost of things for 18 years. It's a record, 18 years, highest time ever. And of course, everything is clear. Tinubunomics is not working. The man is inept. He doesn't know what to do. He's confused. He's almost 6 months of being elected president of this country. There is really nothing to show. His renewed hope, his agenda. Of course, we are not surprised, but we are only bringing this for us to be reminded that we are not surprised. But a lot of them will still defend this nonsense. People that are of his tribe, people of his party, people of his religion, they will still defend it and say, leave it. I was shocked yesterday, somebody in the comment section saying that even if Tinubu spent $500 billion in the New York trip for United Nations Heads of Government Assembly, that it doesn't matter. It's not your money. That's how daft these people are. They don't think, they just talk, because at this point you have to defend. That was how the North was in defending Buhari's administration until when he left office. They didn't even wait for him to leave office. They realized that they have damaged the whole northern economy. There is poverty in this country, but you cannot compare to what's happening in the north, of course. The insecurity, everything. You realize that a Goodluck Jonathan, that wasn't a northerner, did more for the north than what Buhari did. And in 2019, when they had a chance to have changed that, they allowed the sentiment of a social Muslim to affect it. All this again is what we're explaining now. I'm not surprised. Tinubu has nothing to offer. He has nothing. He didn't prove it before the election. He has not proven it, and he will continue to prove it. But keep deceiving yourself to thinking that this is working. At least you have heard it now. Share this video, let it go around, right? So that everybody can get prepared. And there are certain things he even proposed a pay cut, but of course Tinubu cannot listen. They said his wife was telling Nigerians that he has money, no money. Baba, put a pay cut. Let there be cut down in the wages, cost of governance. Nothing. We're even spending more. He's having more aids this time because when I watch the video, when I share this video, and not just we talk. I'll catch you later.
Give us in summary. Do you think that the Nigerian economy is in distress at the moment?
The unambiguous answer is yes, of course. Yeah, the economy is very deeply distressed. Nigeria is practically bankrupt. There's no question in my mind about that. Poverty has increased, to very, very unconscionable degrees. Unemployment is about 40%. The Naira is in distress. So yes, the economy is in very, very bad shape. No question about it.
I mean, so development experts will say that there is nothing wrong with borrowing. But with the kind of burden that Nigeria has, recently, a few months ago, just a few weeks after the president was sworn into office, the debt management office had warned that we can no longer afford to borrow recklessly and go into more borrowings. We need to be careful, warning federal government and state governments about borrowing and about the delicate state of the economy. Now, this is what you said on your X, on your Twitter account today. And you said there is a real problem when Nigeria is set to borrow another 1.5 billion US dollar from World Bank for budget support, and SUVs worth 160 million naira each are reported to be bought for 360 members of the House of Representatives. We are not yet serious as a country. Is that an indictment on the government of the day about the seriousness to rejuvenate and wake up the sleeping economy of Africa's giant?
Yes, it is. It is an indictment on the political class, more specifically. Not just the government, because, in the government you have the executive, then you have the legislature. Now, these jeeps that are going to be bought by or for the members of the House of Representatives are going to cost, hundreds of millions of billions of naira. Now, when and you're borrowing 1.5 billion from the World Bank, the person who is lending you the 1.5 billion at the World Bank knows that at the same time as they're lending you this money, your politicians in the National Assembly are taking care of themselves with exorbitantly priced, products. Now, what do you think that person at the World Bank will do? You think he's going to say, oh, I love your country. We will not give you this loan, because it might be a mistake. No, they're in business to lend to you. That's their own institutional mandate. It is for developing countries like Nigeria to look at themselves very seriously. Why do you think that a country in the situation Nigeria is in today, where it ordinarily should not be borrowing anymore, because 96% of our revenues went to servicing external debt in 2022, and we have a debt stock of $110 billion. Nigeria is debt distressed already. So if you have this and you feel the need to still borrow, and your political leaders are engaging in this type of behavior, why would anybody take such a country seriously? There's not even a consideration to say, okay, if they must have jeeps, we are going to buy locally produced goods, jeeps, that would cost maybe 50 billion each instead of 50 million each instead of 160 million each or 130. That would even show some indication, some sensitivity to the suffering of the Nigerian masses. But no, you don't have that. So my comment is simply a reflection of the fact that the political class in Nigeria more broadly have prevented the economic progress of Nigeria because of their own self-seeking and rent-seeking behavior. This is the problem. The problem is not so much about borrowing. But first of all, when you want to borrow, what are you borrowing for? Ideally, you should borrow for projects that earn a return, on investment and help you to repay the borrowing. But that's not the kind of borrowing we do in Nigeria. Certainly since 2015, we've had all these loans, borrowing, and more borrowing, and we are being told all kinds of things to justify the borrowing. The bottom line is that it just creates distress for the Nigerian economy, especially coupled with the foreign exchange crisis. You have to pay back this money in dollars. Now, even if it's zero interest, So I'm not saying that under no condition should we borrow, but the timing is such, and the situation in Nigeria, that we should look inwards about the cost of governance in our country. We're not doing anything about it, and we go to very easy solutions like getting into more debt. Leadership is about consequences, and it's about legacy. And our political leaders in Nigeria must consider the judgment of history on them, especially at this time that we're going through. People are so poor, citizens are suffering so incredibly, and people are just living large in Abuja as if, nothing matters. And I find this quite, so when you're saying you're running an economy, you run an economy not based on technicalities. You run an economy based on the context of the society. So we need to go back to the drawing table. I I would recommend that our political class seriously consider their legacy, the judgment of history on them, especially given what we're going through in Nigeria, and see what sacrifices that they themselves can make to help the federal government, shoulder the burden of responsibility. Look, the current government in place was not the government that created the mess we're in. That's just the fact of the matter. They have inherited it. They've taken some decisions, removal of the subsidies, petroleum, forex, and those decisions had to be taken. No question, we cannot continue to subsidize those things. The problem was that they did not show adequate forward thinking and planning for the consequences of those policy choices. And that is why I always talk about, the policy competence more broadly. It's not just about thinking things, or saying, we will issue palliatives. What is a palliative? A palliative is not a solution to anything. It's simply a dressing on a wound that does not go to the real root cause. So the way we think about managing the economy must be more serious. It must be more, shall we say, we should look for more internal solutions, and the general cost of governance must come down because it is contributing to our fiscal distress.
So, Prof,
that's the point.
Yeah, if we're looking at cost of governance, can we,
Yes.
I like us to be practically speaking, I like us to be practical and speak truth to power tonight. It was a sad commentary when an economist on this program had said that the Buhari government had battered this economy and that they set this country 20 years back in terms of economic development. It's a sad narrative that we are at that stage, that we had 8 years, and after 8 years, experts will say there is a government that run this economy and ran it aground to the point that they said we were being set back for 20 years. Now, if you were to speak practically, Prof, based on the manner in which governance and government is being run in this country, what are those specific things that will help us to cut down the cost of governance? So that tonight, when citizens see government, because I see a lot of sirens around town these days, one person with several vehicles running around the city, in a city that looks very safe, and I'm wondering what exactly is going on. At every interval, you see sirens all over the city, and I'm wondering how many people do need these sirens. But if you had to pick out specific things that we need to cut down on in terms of cost of governance, what would that be?
Well, first of all, we need to address the culture of governance. The culture of governance we have in Nigeria is very weak. People do not feel a sense of responsibility and accountability to deliver services to the Nigerian people. And there is no real measurement of it that we can see. There is no accountability process that we can see. These things are all part of the governance architecture. So the culture of governance is a very important issue that needs to be addressed. And the tone has to be set from the top, from the presidency down. And it has to include the National Assembly, because a lot of resources go to the National Assembly and they are supposed to be independent of the executive. So they themselves must come on board, examine themselves and say, look, even if we've been making these mistakes in the past, we cannot continue this way. We have to cut our salaries. I recommend a 50% cut for all political office holders and all national legislators. It will make people a little bit more sober. It will make them understand that we're in hard times. So the culture of governance, all these excessive demonstrations of power and influence, it's a very negative culture because it shows that government is not for service. It is for self-aggrandizement. It is for political power for its own sake, not for leadership and service. And this has to cut across the board, both across the legislature and across the executive. Cut down the salaries and the allowances. Cut down the perks of office. In European countries, in Scandinavia, you'll see a prime minister is riding his bicycle to work. Ministers are riding their bicycles. Why does everybody in Nigeria want a siren and a long convoy? There's something wrong with the way we think. And this is why the black man is poor. So all that show of power, all that show of pomp and pageantry, and you're meandering through potholes with your 20-car convoy and your SUVs, you don't pause to think, but you visit countries that are actually developed or are developing. So there's something internally wrong with our value system, and that is where we must begin. Yes.
Prof, I'll take you again to another practical, for the sake of our viewers tonight.
Absolutely.
So you look at it, and where I come from, there is a popular proverb saying, literally, that how your day will look like will exactly show in the early hours of the day. I mean, how in the morning, in the early hours, you already know how your day will pan out. And so one can imagine how a Tinubu government could be from the early day policy and decisions they have made. For you, being around the corridor of power, being the deputy governor of the CBN, for some of these policies, at a point in time, a governor and one of the state governors said that the government of Buhari was printing money. Ways and means decisions were being badly done, and National Assembly follows suit in those policies. And you will imagine that maybe there will be a conscience of someone who will speak up in that sense. But if we are to assess what is going on right now, the early day decision and policies of the Tinubu government, economically speaking, do you think our day from the early hours on the morning is going to speak well?
I think it's a bit early to make that assessment, I must say. However, like I said, they took some courageous decisions, but they did not show deep thinking. And this is a problem we have always had in managing Nigeria's economy. People come and just talk a good game. Oh, we are looking for foreign investors. Oh, this, oh, that. At the end of the day, what translates to the ground for the common man, the average man, is joblessness and poverty. You know, the solution to Nigeria's economic problems does not lie in technical economics. It lies in the broader culture of governance. It lies in creating an inclusive nationhood where we all have a common sense of purpose. If this is not done, you can talk until the cows come home. You can have the best of intentions, but many people do not feel included. And the economic policy making may not have the depth. It takes a lot of work to turn an economy such as Nigeria's around. And we need to see that work being done. You know, we need to see a certain level of depth, a certain level of substance. We have to address issues of the political economy. We have to address issues of nationhood. We have to address issues of our political culture, of waste and corruption. When you want to fight corruption, you have to put in place measures that create transparency and prevent corruption. Let us see the money trail. How are the budgets made? Where are the line items? Where are they going? And how are they executed? What is the project management? What is the return on investment? These are the things. That's how you fight corruption. It's not just about arresting people you don't like or people who have, quote unquote, winched you in the past. That's not fighting corruption, you know? So we just need to think very differently about Nigeria in order for our economy to be able to come up to what it should be.
Yeah. So
we also need to have some. We also need to have some very important understandings. You see, the economy needs short-term immediate measures, then it needs medium-term measures, then it needs long-term measures. We are currently fiscally very distressed. I understand that. So where do they find money from? It includes cutting down the cost of governance. It includes things like maybe considering asset sales. You need to bring 10 to 15 to 20 billion dollars into this economy quickly. But you must make sure that as you're doing that, you are planning for beyond the 1 year in which you will do this. How is the economy being structurally turned around so that we will be exporting more and more value-added goods, so that we are no longer an import-dependent economy? You must make those plans and you must begin to execute them. You don't wait. You don't sell your assets or borrow money and finish, quote-unquote, chopping it over the next 2 or 3 years, and you're still where you were when you borrowed.
Prof,
this is the problem we've had in this country.